I'm so glad he's here. They want to talk about ethics. So do I. They want to talk about financial interest, vested interest in companies and stuff that they're giving their comments upon. Well, another vested interest is politics. We don't need any more political laws. All firearm laws are political laws. There's nothing constitutional about them. Never has been. I was reading the Constitution the other day. And I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what's in the Constitution. What it says about the Constitution. Give me a second here. What I found out was the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution ratifies and preserves for every citizen the right to keep and bear arms, and, moreover, not Congress or any other instrument of the federal government, they are constitutionally barred from infringing upon that right. Now he's talking about they got to avoid their financial conflicts. So here's the thing. There's political contents to this too. They've had to recuse themselves from in case they have a personal financial interest. It's the same way with politics. Money, power, and politics. They need to go by the Constitution itself, not how they interpret it. That's one of the bad things about this Supreme Court. They're the ones that put us in this position to begin with back in 1934. When they changed the Constitution they interpret it in their own way. Doesn't need to be interpreted. It needs to be upheld the way it was written. But now they had to twist it and turn it and do all kinds of things to it, so it made it look like Congress had more power than what they had. And Congress only has the power that we give them in the Constitution. It's defined in there. It's written down. On every question on the construction of the Constitution, let us carry ourselves back to the time when the Constitution was adopted. Recollect the spirit manifested in the debates, and instead of trying what meaning can be squeezed out of the text or invented against it, conform to their probable one which was passed. If you don't believe all this stuff I'm telling you, let them go back to the Federalist Papers. You know, when it talks about the original intent of the Commerce Clause, go look up the Federalist Papers, 41, 42, something like that, I can't remember. In the law, evidence always states that an original document or any other original piece of proof is to be accorded a higher degree of credibility in the courtroom than a copy of any other second-hand proof. That's why you've got to go back to the Federalist Papers and Declaration of Independence and the Anti-Federalist Papers. That's what they got to do. They can't make these judgments out of the blue because of their political beliefs or their financial beliefs. The Constitution is a charter of basic human rights, and the federal government could not infringe on any of these under any circumstances. That's how it was felt, but they've changed things, people. They've changed it. A government that arbitrates any of the Bill of Rights, with or without majority approval, forever acts illegitimately, becoming tyrannical and loses their moral rights to govern. Period. The Bill of Rights does not grant rights to the people such that such a repeal would legitimately confer upon the government the powers otherwise prescribed. The Bill of Rights is a list of the fundamental inalienable rights endowed in man by his Creator that define what it means to be a free and independent person. The rights which must exist to ensure that the government governs only within the consent of the people. And that's not what's been going on. We wouldn't be in this doggone position today if it hadn't been for the Supreme Court of the United States screwing things up back in 1934. Now back when they started doing this stuff, you look here, it all changed during the New Deal with the federal Supreme Court. Franklin D. Roosevelt, with his New Deal, he sought to expand government's federal power. And he was going to pack the court with 6 additional members. The scheme failed, but the threat worked. Thereafter, the court started reading the constitutional general welfare and the Commerce Clause so broadly that doctrine of enumerated powers was essentially destroyed, and with it went limited government. Though those 2 clauses, Congress has created a massive redistribution and regulatory state that surrounds us today. Now we're going to come up on a thing before long that the Supreme Court will be able to turn this around. If they're a real American, and if they're going to let the Supreme Court itself be neutral, not divided by politics, if they read the Federalist Papers, if they read the Anti-Federalist Papers, and if they read Blackstone's commentaries on law, we could get this country restored to its original intent. As it is now, it's just a political powerhouse. Everybody grabbing for more power, more money, more greed. I mean, the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. And any statute to be valid must be an agreement. Those gun laws are not an agreement. It is impossible for a law which violates the Constitution to be valid. All laws that are repugnant to the Constitution are null and void. Marbury versus Madison. Where rights are secured by the Constitution, there can be no rulemaking or legislation which would arbitrate any of them. Miranda versus Arizona. An unconstitutional act is not law. It confers no right, it imposes no duties, affords no protection, it creates no office. It is legal contemplation as inoperable as though it had never been passed. The general rule is that an unconstitutional statute, the general rule is that an unconstitutional statute, though having a form in the name of law, is in reality no law at all, but is wholly void and ineffective for any purpose, since unconstitutionally dates from the time it was enacted, not merely from the date of decision so branding it. No one is bound to obey an unconstitutional law, and no courts are bound to enforce it. The supreme power of America cannot be enforced just by laws by the sword, because the whole body of the people are out here are armed and constitute a force superior to any band of regular troops, so on any pretense can be raised up in the United States and fight against tyranny. You know, our forefathers, they instituted the government, and their Declaration of Independence advised governments, long established, should not be changed for light and transient causes. I think they would be very, very proud of the people standing up today, about the militias standing up, about the whole part of the people standing up against their tyranny. Now it's up to the Supreme Court of the United States. All these people with their high morals and all this other stuff come to the forefront and put this in their proper place. All those laws are unconstitutional. It's outside the scope of powers granted to Congress by the Constitution. Our framers were for an all-armed American people. They understood that arms are ultimate defense in the event that the federal government oversteps its bounds. And that means everybody can have a firearm. Everybody. Oh, they say, well, felons can't have them. Felons are locked up. The people that are let out of jail are free. Do you understand that? They're no longer felons. Get that through your head. They've long had so much control and scare and fears among the population is unreal. Accordingly, anywhere is the government, nowhere in the Constitution were they granted authority to abridge, restrict, or infringe in any fashion whatsoever guns or ammunition. Thus, all restrictive laws made by Congress, all regulations made by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms are unconstitutional as outside the scope of powers granted to Congress and to the executive branch by our Constitution. Restriction of arms and ammunition is not one of the enumerated powers delegated to Congress. If it's not spelled out in the Constitution, they don't have any power. Their powers were written in the enumerated laws. Anything outside that is just null and void. This stuff about, they're up there worrying about Roe versus Wade and about welfare and all this other stuff. Congress has no jurisdiction to pass any kind of laws, and they knew that. But, like I said, they've gained power and control since 1934, thanks to the Supreme Court not reading the Constitution, nor really giving it any care. Now, I told you before, since after the Civil War, these people stopped reading the Constitution. What they did, they started studying what other judges wrote about the Constitution, thus making that judge the law and not the Constitution itself. Period. Another thing that irks me is the government passing these laws and making people go background checks and all this other stuff. I'm telling you what, you cannot change a right into a privilege. We don't need the government's permission to go buy a firearm or ammunition or anything else. You cannot regulate a right of way even in the name of public safety. Liberty is the right of all human beings, and their government is established to protect these rights, not regulate them. Another thing, anything that's mandatory is the opposite of liberty. I'll say this one more time. I've said it before. The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution ratifies and preserves for every citizen the right to keep and bear arms, and moreover, that neither Congress nor any other instrument of the federal government, they are constitutionally barred from infringing upon that right. The Constitution was written to limit government, not to limit the people. And never accept the government infringing upon your freedoms as necessary or justified. And you can't legislate a right out of existence. It's unconstitutional. Well, I've pretty much had my say for today. This thing with the Supreme Court, that's a scary thing. You know, like I said, when it comes to the Second Amendment, it should be unanimous. And I understand, I'll say this again so that it's understood. Anything that has to do with the Second Amendment, it should be a unanimous jury thing for the people. They should remove all the unjust laws, firearm laws. They need to remove all the statutes that pertain to any firearm laws. They must do it immediately. They won't wait around for this country to get worse and worse and worse and worse until it's taken away from us. If they don't, here's the thing. We're getting to the point, you know, where there's an old saying, where there's no justice, all you are left with is survival. When that happens, You do without the rule of law. You become very hardcore. And that's what the people are becoming right now. They've been sitting around, it's been festering, they're getting hardcore because our Supreme Court has let us down numerous times since 1934. And it continues. And it can't continue, not without trouble brewing. Extreme trouble. Okay, well, I've pretty much had my say. Thanks for watching.